Hello. Welcome back. Today we are in the chapter 32, which means we have 4 chapters left, or maybe 5, but one of them's quite short. So we're getting pretty close to the end here, which is pretty exciting, and which is pretty typical for my novels. We start unpacking a lot of the emotional realities of our characters as we move into this final few chapters. And yesterday's chapter, for those who missed it, was a chapter where Madeline discovers that nothing is as she had thought in the Sunlit Lands, with really personal consequences for her. And in this chapter that we're reading today, we're finally going to get into Jason's emotional world and what's been going on there. So let's see. People are showing up. Caitlin says hello. Hi, Caitlin. The Scales family is here. Hi, how was your day? My day is pretty good today overall. I got up early because on Wednesdays is when I record my podcast, which is with 3 of my good friends, J.R. Foresteros, Clay Morgan, and Kathy Kong. We've been doing that. Today was our 230-something episode, and we've been doing it weekly for quite a while. And so it's fun, just fun connecting with those folks. And today we didn't have any guests on the show, so we were just chatting with each other kind of about what's going on. So that was fun. How was your day? Oh, and then I had another Zoom call for work. My wife runs a kind of a learning small group for people who want to learn as Christians how to engage well in their communities, things like that. It's actually open. She runs it once a year. It's 8 months long, or twice a year. So there's 2 cycles of it. It's 8 months long, and you start with a training in one city, and then so there's 2 like kind of field trip trainings, and then the rest of it's all done online. And we've had people. This is on staff with our organization crew, but she also does them. Other people can come in and do it. So if you want to do that or something like it, or know more about it, let me know. I can connect you to my wife. Lily Me is here and says hello. She's here. Patrick Fogarty is here. He says, hey, Matt. Hey, Patrick. Dr. Awesome says, so excited for this chapter. Smiley face. Yeah, one of my kids just came through and said, which chapter is it? And I told her, and she goes, heart. She's so excited. It's a good chapter. It's an important chapter. Lily Me says, I just binge watched the Asian American PBS documentary you guys talked about on the podcast this week. It is great. By the way, PBS's Asian American documentary walks through a variety of historical experiences of Asian Americans in the United States. Beautifully done. All Asian American documentarians and a lot of Asian American historians and family and things are talked to about each event. It's really great, really well done, worth your time for sure. And I think if you've grown up and don't know much about the Asian American experience in Asia, a lot of really surprising moments. And I know a decent amount, right? And there was one of the episodes that I was like, you got to be kidding me. I had no idea. It was about Korean Americans during the Korean War. Is that right? It was great. The Sims are here. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to you. Glad everyone's here. Hey, just a reminder, on Friday, we're going to have Lindsay Franklin with us, author of The Story Hunter, which is the 3rd book in the Weaver trilogy. Lindsay's just a delightful person. You're going to enjoy meeting her, I know for sure, and she's really fun to talk to, so I think you'll enjoy that. Today, we're reading a really important chapter in the history of the Crescent Stone, in the history of the Sunlit Lands, and in Jason Wu's story. And it becomes a huge piece of book 2 and book 3, actually, in what happens here. So what's happened so far is Madeline Oliver and Jason Wu come to the Sunlit Lands because Madeline can't breathe. And there's an Elendil named Hanali who says if she comes to work for him in this magical land against the evil Skim, that she'll be able to breathe. once she's done with her service, a year of service. She just discovered in our previous chapter, she and her friends are on the run, trying to get away from these skim warriors. She gets captured and discovers that the warrior who has been anonymous, hidden behind a mask, is actually an old friend from Earth who she knows. And he introduces her to some complexity in the world of the Sunlit Lands and learns that, all is not what she thought related to the skim, and the way that she received her healing is a way that she's not sure she wants it. And she's trying to figure out what to do about that. Jason, meanwhile, has escaped into the desert with his friend Bailea, who's Kakri. It's a group of people who live in the Sunlit Lands. And in the last chapter we saw with Jason, they were on the run through the desert. He stopped to help a wounded little lion cub, which turned out to be something else. And so the skim caught up with him and Bailea. But then there was an enormous sandstorm, and they managed to hide in the cleft of a rock. And Bailea using her Kakri cultural knowledge, she had some cloth that she put over the entrance to keep them safe from the sand. And that's where we pick up today in chapter 32, the meeting of the spheres. Let us turn our faces from this place. Let us seek solace in the desert. From the deserted city, a Kakri lament. When the storm passed, Bailea climbed from the cleft of the rock and disappeared for over an hour, checking the surrounding area for the skim army. I can find no sign of them, she said. I do not think they will find us again. The sunset painted the desert. Bailea led Jason down from the stones they had hidden in. It is the night of the third and fourth spheres meeting, she said. It is a festival among my people. I hoped we would make it in time. Turn and look. The rocks they had hidden among were not stones at all, but the remnants of an ancient city. Broken towers and fallen walls protruded from the shifting sands. A statue of a Kakri couple stood above them. The woman's right arm encircled the man, and her left arm was raised to the sky. Or Jason assumed that's what it would be doing. It had broken long ago. A series of fountains remained, all filled with sand rather than water. What is this place? Jason asked. It was called Ezerbean. Once it was the greatest city in the world. The court of far-seeing is a pale shadow of Ezerbean's glory. In the middle of the desert? It was no desert then. Canals crossed the city, fountains, irrigated fields. There were cisterns too, yes, but mostly the water was plenteous. Jason could barely imagine. The place looked like dried bones stacked in the sun. What happened? The city grew vile. The people oppressed their neighbors. In time, they became horrible, filled with lies. The cherubim came. They encircled the city and pronounced there would be no more water. The rain stopped. The river dried up. The people of the city had to leave or die. It is said a crow came to my ancestor and taught her to live in this new land, the desert. Others in the city denied this offer, for it was too much to humble themselves to a bird. They could not learn from such a lowly creature, but my ancestor believed it was no shame to walk with crows. So were born the Kakri, the ones who left the city and embraced the desert as our home. Jason's mouth fell open. He had assumed the Kakri were some sort of nomadic tribal people, and maybe they were. But Bailea was telling him that they had once built the greatest city in the Sunlit Lands. Whoa, Jason said. Are they planning to rebuild it one day? Bailea leaned on her staff. In their desert, there is no room for a lie, Jason. You must walk either with truth or with death. The truth tells us that we cannot rebuild unless the water returns. It is not the choice of the Kakri people whether to rebuild. We must allow the cherubim to tell us if such a time returns. In the meantime, every year, at the meeting of the third and fourth spheres, my people congregate here and sing about the fall of old Ezerbean and tell stories. They rested in the shade of the fallen wall, and Bailea showed him where the Kakri would gather near the statue. Night settled in. The stars strangely did not appear like at home, the brightest first and the darkest parts of the sky. They climbed up from the eastern horizon, bright and multicolored, a blanket of galaxies being pulled over the world. From the north came a small, warm moon, faster and brighter than Earth's, chasing ahead of the stars at an angle, like a surfer before a wave. Somehow, while Jason had been watching the stars rise, the Cockry had entered, quiet as breath, and gathered before the statue. Half stood beneath the oncoming stars, the other half beneath the moon. Jason's breathing quickened. These silent warriors terrified him. "Do not fear," Bailea whispered. "On this night there is no violence among the Cockry. It is a night of mourning our lost city and celebrating our marriage to the desert." When the stars and the moon set, a song began among the moonside Cockry. "Where is the fountain which brought joy to the city, clean and clear at its heart?" There were no instruments, just voices. The Starside Cockry answered, also in song, "It has been carried away, the water spilled to the sand, the water given to the sun." The song, beautiful and strange, reached out to Jason like the tendrils of a plant opening in the morning dew. He felt himself alive, transported, and filled with a deep, melancholy sadness. When the song ended, a woman ran among the singers dressed as an enormous crow. She invited them into the desert. She told them they could become a part of it, that she would teach them how to thrive. She would teach them, she said, how to become people again, and not the corrupted creatures which had come to live in this city. They must leave everything behind, their houses, their possessions, their friends or family members who would not embrace the desert and the wisdom to be found there. As the crow said these words, those near her cheered and embraced. They threw off their dull capes and coverings, revealing beautiful, brightly colored outfits beneath. They turned to their neighbors and shouted the news, inviting them to the desert, and color rippled through the crowd. Bailea threw off her own cloak and grabbed Jason's hand. "Come, now we dance." Musical instruments came out. Jason's favorite was a stringed instrument Bailea said was called a bitar. And the Cockry danced in a whirling, leaping style. Those who jumped highest and whirled fastest moved toward the center of the crowd. Jason tried to imitate them, but found himself on the outer limits of the dance with the smallest children and the most infirm elders. At times, a Cockry man would appear laughing and try to teach him how to leap higher. A drink that tasted like honey and goat's milk was passed around, and a crowd gathered to watch Jason take his first sip. When he held the bowl to his lips, Bailea pushed it higher, and he took in several gulps of the drink, which burned and left him sputtering and gasping. The people cheered, applauding and laughing, and a trio of muscled women lifted him up on their shoulders and began to jump in place, tossing him higher each time. "Spin!" they called to him, and he did his best, trying to spin as they had in their dances. When he reached the ground again, there were many hands clapping his back and arms thrown over his shoulders. Sweating and exhausted, he sat down between two old women who rested on the edge of the deserted fountain. They wore bright clothes, but a chill had set in without the sun, and their dun-colored cloaks were over their legs. "Hello," Jason said to them, wiping the sweat from his forehead. "Greetings, Wu Song, slayer of tigers," the old woman to his left said. His heart immediately started pounding again. How did this old woman know the story of Wu Song? Back home, only people with Chinese family knew the story. "Forgive me, but I don't know your name." The old lady on the other side chuckled. "She's Mother Crow. Do you not see her feathers?" He looked more closely at her cloak. It did have black feathers sewn into it. She must have been the one in the play who invited the people into the desert. Mother Crow smiled at him, her face wrinkled and aged as the desert itself. "Would you leave behind all to learn the wisdom of the desert?" Jason's mouth twitched. "I don't think so. I have things to do. My friend Madeline. I have to protect her." "Indeed," Mother Crow said. "I suspected you would say so." The other lady patted his hand. "You cannot protect another person," she said. "Not in truth. Death comes for all. Your friend Madeline, too." But there's value in keeping people safe until that time, Jason said. You can't save people forever, but if you can do it today, you should. People are, he paused. He wasn't sure how to say the next bit. People are the most important thing in the world. Anything else can be replaced, but people, each one is unique. And when a person dies, they never come again. They're gone forever. Other people might come, but not that one. So we have to protect them while we can. And if it's someone you love, well, you should protect them no matter what. Mother Crow smiled. You see, he has some of the desert in him. I see why she likes you. Who, Madeline? Both the old women laughed, and one pointed at Bailea, who leapt and spun near the center of the crowd, her bright blue smock flying around her like wind. She caught his eye as she twirled, and she smiled, looked away, and kept dancing. He noticed the gold armband she wore. She had rolled her loose sleeves up so you could see it glittering on her muscular arm. Mother Crow said, Wusong, may I see the mask? Baffled that she knew so much, Jason pulled the mask from his sack. Mother Crow held it up, studying the mirrored surface as it flared and shone in the starlight. The Knight of the Mirror asks that you keep it safe from the skim. Well, the skim made it, the other old lady said. Mother Crow nodded and said, well, they could make another if they chose. No, we will not hold this mask for you, Wusong. It has too little of the truth in it. This mask is deception. To live in the desert, one must embrace who one is. This mask does the opposite. It tells the world you are who they desire you to be. It is a small death to cover your face in such a way. So I came all this way for nothing. The old woman's eyes widened in surprise. You gained a story, did you not? Now, Mother Crow said, when the sun rises, you must leave this place. So long as you hold that mask, you are not welcome among our people. If one day you desire to leave all and learn from the desert, come and seek what you may find among the sands. Jason tucked the mask away, disappointed. How did they know all these things before he told them? What was he meant to do now that their entire mission had failed? And of course, he had been the one to fail, not Bailea, who was good at everything. He paused. Is there, perchance, a father crow I could speak to? The old women cackled with laughter. Sweet child, go along now. How can you protect your Madeline when she is so far away? He wasn't sure what to do. He wandered out beyond the new firelight flickering up near the elders. He stood and looked at the moon, now completely enveloped in stars. The music and joyful cries of the people faded as he considered all that had happened since coming to the sunlit lands. After a while, Bailea leaned up against his shoulder, handing him a chunk of roasted meat. Hare, she said. He hadn't realized how hungry he was until she put it in his hands and he ate it gladly. He told her all the old women had said. She listened carefully. When he was finished, she said, I will go back with you to far-seeing. You're not upset? It is foolish to be upset about what is. Let us instead attempt to shape what will be. She shivered as if suddenly cold and pulled her dun cloak over her shirt. Why have you tied yourself to Madeline? She asked. Why do you seek to protect her even from death, should she come? Jason and Bailea sat down on the edge of a broken piece of statuary. It looked like it had been a group of people sitting at a long table. The table was flat and smooth and broken in such a way that they could lean up against it like a chair. I haven't told anyone this story, Jason said. Bailea jumped up. Then why tell it to me? Such a story is priceless, an unknown, untold tale. He had forgotten how stories were money here among the Cockry. That meant that she had shared something valuable with him when she told him the story of the crow, inviting the Cockry people into the desert. You deserve to know. You're my friend, Jason said. She looked skeptical. It would help me to tell someone. Her face softened, and she sat down again, legs crossed, facing him. She put her hands on her knees and said, I will listen attentively. I had a sister once. Her name was Jenny. She was 3 years older than me. Jason cleared his throat. He hadn't said her name in a while. His eyes burned. You have to understand that my parents, they meant well, I think, but they did things differently. They weren't like the other American parents, even though my mom came to the United States when she was young. My dad thought the best way to encourage someone to work hard was to never be satisfied with their work. If we got straight A's, he'd barely acknowledge it. He'd say things like, grades in middle school do not count. But if you got terrible grades, they suddenly counted quite a lot. I do not know what this means, grades and A's. Right. Think of it like lessons. If we did well at our lessons, he didn't say anything, but if we did poorly, he had a lot to say. So Jenny and me, we were a team. When I got my grades, I'd go to her bedroom and we'd close the door and she would look at them and tell me what a good job I was doing. She'd show me her grades and I'd tell her how proud I was. We talked about everything. It was us versus my parents and everything, and we always stuck together. It is not a good way to live as a family. Jason laughed cynically. I don't think it's what my parents intended, but it's what happened. So after a while, Jenny started dating this guy named Marcus. He was Korean. What does dating mean? Jason stopped trying to think of the right way to say it. More than friends, I guess. Like you and Madeline. More like siblings than friends. She raised an eyebrow as if asking whether she had understood his relationship to Madeline correctly. Jason ran his hands through his hair. No, like husband and wife, but they weren't married yet. They were betrothed. Jason debated whether to explain the entire process in modern-day America, but decided it would cause more questions and misunderstandings. She didn't need to get it perfectly anyway. No, they weren't engaged. They wanted to be engaged, though. That seemed close enough. Bilea said. He had not yet told her his story. I understand now. He wasn't sure she did, but he couldn't spend forever on this little detail. Right. So Jenny and Marcus, they were spending a lot of time together. My parents didn't like him, though. They kept saying he was irresponsible. They wanted Jenny to date a Chinese boy, not a Korean one. What does this mean? What did that mean? He came from another tribe than us. Like you and me, Bilea said. Close enough. Right, yeah. So my dad had a big fight with Jenny, and he told her she couldn't see Marcus anymore. Bilea leaned forward. She did not obey him. Jason shook his head. Jenny would say she was going to a friend's house or that she was working on her lessons. And one night, she didn't come home. She had told my parents she was meeting someone at the library, but as the hours went by, my dad started to suspect she was with Marcus. And your mother killed the boy, Bilea said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. What? No. My dad started asking me where Jenny was. She told me everything, and Dad knew that. I knew Jenny and Marcus had driven to a mountain near our house to watch the sunset. She had texted me from there. Texted? Sent me a message. My dad got more and more angry as the night went on. He shouted and screamed. My mom tried to get me to tell her what was going on, and I kept sending her messages to my sister. I kept sending messages to my sister telling her, get home quickly. At last, my dad grabbed me by the shirt and dragged me to my sister's room. He threw me on the floor and told me he knew she was seeing Marcus, that it didn't matter now, that it was 3 a.m, and he needed to know where she was. I was so tired. I hadn't slept. My whole body hurt. I told him what I knew. He called the police, and then he and my mother and I went to the mountain in my father's car. Then he had to explain about police and cars. The police. They found your sister. No, Jason said. At sunrise, my mom noticed skid marks on the road and broken trees. My dad stopped the car in the middle of the road, grabbed me by the neck, and dragged me to the edge of the cliff. Marcus's car was down there. My father was yelling. I didn't know what to do, so I climbed down. By the time I got to the car, I was bruised, covered in mud. My clothes were torn. Did your father follow you? Jason shook his head. Jenny was... The car was upside down, broken. Marcus was dead. Jenny, though, she looked at me. She tried to speak. I couldn't get the door open. She said... Jason couldn't get the words to come out. His lips trembled. His throat closed tight. His hands shook and tears spilled from his eyes. She said, Dee Dee, I was waiting for you. Bailea did not say anything, but she reached across and took his hand in hers. Jason explained to her about doctors and ambulances. When the ambulance came, they said that Marcus had been dead for 6 hours. Jenny had been there beside him that whole time. If they'd been able to get to her even an hour sooner, they could have saved her. He hung his head. If I had only told them the truth. And you have not lied since that day. One lie. I told my parents that Jenny had said she loved them and she was sorry she disobeyed. What did your father say? Jason stared into the distance. He said I had killed my sister. He hasn't spoken to me since the funeral. Bailea sat still, her hand resting in his. You did not kill her, Bailea said. Jason could not handle Bailea saying that. Even Jenny had blamed him. I was waiting for you, she had said, and he hadn't come, not in time. He had never told anyone that part of the story. He had only turned it over and over in his own mind. Jenny had wished he had told the truth, that he had let his parents know where she was. If he had told them right away, or even if he had told them sooner, Jenny would still be alive. I can't let someone else die, Jason said. I have to protect Madeline. If she were to pass, and I could have stopped it, I can't live with that. Bailea said, I have heard your story, and I will consider it carefully. It is a good story, Wusong. She pulled the gold armband from her arm and placed it on Jason's. I will keep the story safe. She stood. Come, the sun is rising. Bring the mask, and we will return to farseeing. She took his hand and helped him to his feet. I understand now why you must protect Madeline, and I, too, will protect her. Wait for me at the fallen gate of the city, and we will begin our journey soon. Jason wiped his eyes, thankful for the easy way Bailea had taken his story, and thankful, too, that she had not condemned him, but seemed more serious than ever about joining him. She made her way over to the remnants of the dancers. She spoke to them. He couldn't hear their words, but there was a great ululating cry, and the dancing began again with more fervor. He turned the gold band on his arm. It felt like a declaration of friendship. It meant a lot to him that she had put it on his arm, that she would loan it to him, even for a short time. Mother Crow stood at the broken gate. She pressed a small bag of food and a skin of water into his hands. For the Cockry people, she said, courtship is different than among your people. Dating advice, huh, Mother Crow? No offense, but how long has it been since you dated anyone? She ignored him. If you wish to marry Bailea, here is how it is done among our people. First, the man has a story he has kept secret his whole life. It must be a story he has never told anyone, ever. He pulls the woman aside and shares the story with her. This is a valuable story, a secret story. Jason felt a small flutter of panic in his stomach. Mother Crow continued, when the story is done, the woman must decide whether to marry or not. If she wishes to become betrothed, she tells the man his story was a good one, and that she will consider it carefully. She has 1 year to think on his story. Well, so if she says it's a good story, They're engaged? Mother Crow smiled and shook her head. First, she must give him a token of her affection. Uh-oh. Not like a gold armband, though, right? That would be a fine token, Mother Crow said. Then she tells her family, and there is a celebration. There would be a way to explain the misunderstanding, he was sure. Celebrations weren't bad anyway, right? For the next 12 cycles of the moon, Mother Crow said, the family tries to kill the suitor, and the woman must prevent it through the strength of her arms and her prowess as a warrior. Wait, what? Say that again. The family tries to murder the suitor for 1 year. The betrothal celebration lasts 1 day, after which the family seeks the suitor to kill him. If they fail to kill him, there is great rejoicing, and he becomes a member of her household. And if they succeed? She shrugged. What does it matter? What if the suitor backs out of the engagement? Mother Crow narrowed her eyes. The family still attempts to kill him, but he is no longer under the protection of his betrothed. Great. He would be married or dead within a year, possibly both. Mother Crow, he said. Yes, Wusong. Goodbye. He ran into the desert, knowing that Bailea would catch up easily. She did. She was beaming. Her skin seemed to glow. She smiled at him and took his hand. Soon her family would follow them into the desert, bent on killing him. As part of their strange marriage ritual, the Kokri would move faster than the Skim military, and they knew these desert wastes. Bailea squeezed his hand. Faster, Wusong. Wusong ran. The end of chapter 32. Oh, boy. I love that chapter. One of the things I love about that chapter is that balance of really deep, difficult sorrow, right? With the humor of the unexpected consequences of Jason telling his story. That's something I love to see when I'm able to pull it off. Okay, the Scales family asked, will you be reading the second book? We would really enjoy it. That's a great question. I haven't decided yet. We will definitely take a break between books either way. I think partly I'm wondering if things start opening up more. I want to make sure that I'm able to read at a time when people are actually available. And I need to talk to my publisher, make sure they're okay with it. What might make sense is to do it in the lead up to book 3 coming out. So we may do that, which is early next summer. So maybe next spring. I don't know, but I'll find out. We'll make a plan and I'll let you know. Caitlin says, I love the Kokri people. I wish I could be one. I love them too. They really are wonderful. They're some of my favorite characters for sure in the Sunlit Land. And Bailea, honestly, might be my favorite character. I just love her. Just love her. Lily Me. He hadn't told her his story yet. Something like that. Oh, Jason. Poor guy. Oh, boy. Jason. Crying heart. Yep. And our good friend Dr. Awesome says, I definitely just cried and laughed. So many hidden gems. Everyone needs to read this book at least twice. Thank you. I've actually been really enjoying rereading it and just catching little things in there that obviously I put in there, but being reminded of them. And I love there's so many characters in the Crescent Stone who just bring little moments of wisdom that are good reminders to me, even as author. And a lot of those things are I've picked up along the way elsewhere, right? So they're not necessarily from me. Anyway, I'm enjoying it. I hope you all are enjoying it. Coming up, as you know, Friday at 1, we'll have our buddy Lindsay Franklin with us, or 4 p.m. Eastern. So don't miss that. Lindsay is a lot of fun. And then also, of course, Tyndale.com is still taking orders and sending books. So if you hadn't read The Crescent Stone or The Heartwood Crown, that's a place that you can still get them. OasisAudio.com has the audiobook. Natasha does a great job reading both books. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. When you like or comment, it's a favor to me. And it's a favor to your friends who find this content as a result. And every time you subscribe, my family is disappointed to see me do a happy dance. So please disappoint my family. All right, my friends, I will see you tomorrow. And we will do the next chapter, which actually, let's do a quick preview. What chapter we got? Oh, the Elenil at War, chapter 33. So we're coming into the climactic moments of the book. So this week, I think we'll probably finish next week. We may have to do one slightly longer day to do it. But yeah, we're coming up to the very end. So I'll see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Thanks, everybody. And I'll talk to you soon.